Krishnamurti was an Indian English guy who was kind of a mystic and philosopher. He was discovered by the Theosophical Society, who were searching for somebody to be the channel of the world teacher, to bring us information from the great beyond. And I scoured all his books and videos, but I never found anything really useful there. But I know that he has a lot of followers. He says he wasn't a guru and not to follow gurus, but he was a guru and all his followers are disciples. I think they really need to break the spell they're under with him, because they're all good people as far as I can tell. They're just distracted by his over-intellectualization and abstraction and ambiguity, matched by his confidence and pious persona. Let's get into it. Now, this is just the first video that popped up for me, but they're all the same.
I'm telling him or her, to observe is the most important thing in life.
Well, to understand cause and effect is the most important thing in life.
Not tell the observation how to observe, but to learn the art of observing without any distortion, without any motive, without any purpose, just to observe.
Well, that's already enlightened. So how can you get enlightened by starting off enlightened? Doesn't make any sense. And all his advice tends to be like that, you know. Do this thing in the most perfect way possible in order to be enlightened, I guess. He doesn't even say that he's specifically aiming at enlightenment. He's always very vague about that.
In that there is tremendous beauty, because then there is no distortion. You see things clearly as they are.
So he's full of hyperbole about how great observation is and all his advice is, but doesn't really say much. It's very vague. He says he's going to see things clearly as they are, but I don't think he sees things clearly as they are at all. I think he's like all of these anti-mind kind of gurus. They're just in reaction to thought. They see thought as the enemy, so they want to just bypass it straight away, where thought is obviously a great tool for analysis.
If you make an abstraction of it into an idea, and then through that idea observe, then it's a distortion. Right? So, we are merely, freely, without any distorting factor entering into our observation, observing consciousness.
How do you observe consciousness? It's consciousness that observes. It's the only thing that is undistorted. But treating him charitably, perhaps he means observing the content of consciousness, or really the content of mind, by using consciousness, because consciousness is always untainted.
So consciousness begins to reveal its own totality. There is.
Really? So if its totality is being revealed, that means all of psychology is being revealed. But Krishnamurti is not an expert on all psychology, so that's a excessive claim.
The content, which is our hurt, our greed, our envy, our happiness, our beliefs, our ideologies, all that makes up consciousness. The past traditions, the present scientific or factual traditions, and so on, so on, so on. All that is our consciousness.
All that is the content of consciousness, or the content of mind, not consciousness itself. So he's very unclear about his terminology as well, you find. I mean, I remember seeing one video when he got himself in this weird loop where he was saying ultimate outcome is not reality, because he defined reality as the known or something. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
When thought comes and says, this is right, this is wrong, this should be that, you are still within the field of consciousness. You're not going beyond it.
So we see that he wants to go beyond thought. So he's one of those beyond thought guys. Thought's a useful tool. And his judgment of negative emotions, like he was mentioning envy and things like that, that's thought. Thought says, well, envy sucks, so I should investigate envy or get beyond envy or whatever. So he's using thought. It is claiming to be beyond thought or not using thought.
Thought has its own place in the field of knowledge, technology and all the rest of it. But thought has no place whatsoever in the psychological structure of man.
Well, first off, we know that it is in the psychological structure of people. So I presume he's saying that it shouldn't be. Krishnamurti is often criticised as being the most mindy guru out there. So how can he claim that thought has no place?
When it does, then confusion begins. Then contradiction. Then all the struggles, the images about you and another. All the rest of it follows.
Well, it's true that our ideas of ourselves is not who we really are. But the problematic aspect of that is not the thought itself, it's the energy behind it, the dissatisfaction, judgment, fear, all that, which has a deeper cause, which is society's illusion that people are lacking and flawed. So we start with that assumption because it's drilled into us from childhood. And so we automatically believe that others are flawed, and we will automatically believe that we're lacking happiness and must chase it, and so we harm others while chasing it. He never goes into that deeper stuff because he doesn't have a clue about it, frankly.
So, the art, as we said, art, the meaning of art means to put everything in its right place. Not the painter, not the sculptor.
Well, that's good advice. Good practical advice is like clean up your room, the Jordan Peterson thing. Definitely can make life go better. And I would say actually, if we just get the basics of our life working nicely, and if we're in a nice country, then that's a great way to understand yourself, because any unhappiness after that must be self-caused or self-maintained. Putting everything in order takes away all our excuses, and then we have to go directly to the deeper causes if there's still unhappiness around.
Can you observe your consciousness? And does it reveal its content? Not bit by bit, but the totality of its movement.
The totality of the mind's movement. Can you observe it all? No, you can't, because there's too much of it and it's too complicated for most people. But you don't need to observe the totality of it. You just need to get to the root causes of whatever the problem is.
Then only is it possible to go beyond it. And when you analyze, each analysis must be totally complete.
No, it's got to be relevant, not complete. You can't analyze the totality of consciousness, and you don't need to, obviously. Why? You don't need to analyze the entire planet to act in it. Same with the mind.
If there is not complete analysis, then the imperfection of that analysis is carried over to the next analysis. So imperfection grows more and more and more.
I can see a possible relevance here in that you must be willing to question your whole life direction. Everyone falls short of getting to ultimate reality because they find something attractive or superficially satisfying or temporarily satisfying along the way, and they never get to the end of the inquiry. So the lack of total commitment carries on from investigation to investigation. So you end up with people going from one therapy to another, to a new meditation techniques, and they just keep going and going and going and never get to the real issues.
Can you observe without any movement of thought?
So what are we supposed to be observing if there's no movement of thought? He said to observe the contents of consciousness, which I presume he means the contents of mind, but there's no thought. If there's no thought, there's no content. It doesn't make any sense.
Interfering with your observation. It is only possible when the observer realizes that which he is observing are one. The observer is the observed.
That's supposed to be his great contribution to the world, that the observer is the observed. Well, first off, in the dictionary, if you look up observer and observed, they're not the same thing. If the observer is the observed, that means, when you're looking at your computer, you are the computer looking back at you. And he never fully explains this observer as the observed thing. You can go and read it anywhere. He goes on and on about it, but he never explains it. And he's always vague with his terminology like that. But let's guess that he's talking about oneness or something like that. But nobody has proof of oneness. So you can have oneness experiences, but that's not proof. I suspect that he liked to hang out with scientists, and scientists were talking about, the observer effect in physics, where the observation changes the results of some experiments on the micro level. And he thought he was just being cool and up to date. That's my guess, because otherwise it just doesn't make any sense. Why is he talking about this?
Anger is not different from me. I am angry. I'm jealousy.
No. Anger and jealousy are temporary forms of energy, and you're the perceiver of those things, and they come and go. And what's wrong with anger and jealousy? Instinctual, natural. Otherwise, they are the result of societal pressures and illusions. So we should focus on those pressures and illusions rather than focus on anger and jealousy. But he's generally on the side of society of judging people and, their behaviour.
So there is no division between the observer and the observed. That is the basic reality one must capture.
You must capture that. Well, if there's no difference between you and that idea, then you've already captured it. And how could it be hard for you to capture seeing yourself? If you're the observer and you see the observed, and they're supposed to be the same, how has it taken everyone so long to not find that? But maybe we could look at it another way. Maybe he doesn't mean the observer as in the true person. He means like when anger arises, the perception of anger arises. So they're both mutually arising, and one looks at the other. But that's such a useless point. Who cares? What difference does it make? Unless he's trying to say that you shouldn't try to resist it. But he's always just completely unclear about all of this. And I think that There's another guy with the same surname, another Krishnamurti guy, and he criticised him for being deliberately obscurantist. I think bang on.
And to observe without the observer.
Okay, so the observer is the observed, and then you can get rid of the observer. So he must be talking about the mutually arising thing, not you as pure consciousness or anything like that. Well, I guess he has a slight point if he means observe without the resistance to observation, but he's all along he's anti-thought. But you can see what I mean. It's just so unclear.
The reality which thought has made is not truth. It's the reality of thought.
That's true, I agree with that. Thought is limited. So when you say the table's something for eating off, well, that's only for a human being. For an ant, it might be something to hide under, etc. No. As you can see, all these vague... Here we are, we've got some more vague titles. Observation without distortion, the art of observation, end the known now, not when death comes. If you have a self-image, you are going to be hurt. So he wants to get rid of self-images. Well, it's if you believe in the self-image, you're going to be hurt. But more importantly, you'll be hurt if you're in a society that judges. But just to prove that this is how he always normally talks, for those who don't know, here was another video that's newly released. There's a date there, newly released. So I thought, okay, let's see if anything's different here. So we'll zip through very quickly, because I know it's so agonizing.
So we have together going to find out what is the cause of conflict, the root of it.
So that's a great goal. If conflict's hurting, you want to find the root cause of it. Great, let's see if he does it.
And of course, if you admit that conflict is inevitable, it's natural, as human beings for the last millennia have lived in conflict, so why shouldn't we also? That kind of argument is rather, if I may say, rather silly and inept.
I absolutely agree with that. People react like that when I present my ideas. I say, we can create utopia or something, or utopia can happen as a result of us tuning into our innate happiness and goodwill, and they always just say what he just said then, which is, oh, there's always been conflict, there always will be, or something like that. It's very banal comments.
Is that conflict the cause? Is that to be analysed?
Yes.
Then if you're analysing the cause, then who is the analyser?
Me.
Right? Is the analyser different from that which he analyses?
Yes.
You understand my question? Am I talking to myself? Are you really interested in all this? Yes. Please, don't encourage the speaker. It's not worth it. Are you really interested in all this? Yes. To find out the cause of conflict. Mm-hmm. And when there is the discovery of the cause, then the effect disappears. Then because any cause can be changed. If one has a toothache or a headache, it has a cause. And when you find the cause, that disease disappears.
Agreed.
Similarly, if we can find out the cause or the causes of why we live in perpetual conflict, and to delve deeply into that, it's not a process of analysis.
Huh?
Because analysis implies a division between the analyzer and the analyzed. And therefore, in that process of analysis, there's still conflict.
So when somebody asks a question, there's always conflict? I mean, so you get two scientists together, they ask a question about a medicine or something in physics or geology or whatever. He's saying that must be conflict because there's an analysis is happening. Just completely no basis for saying that. It's just not true.
Which demands attention, care, deep urge to find out, passion to step out of this conflict. That requires energy.
The passion should be to understand the conflict. The passion should be reality, not to be free of conflict. Because reality is the only logical basis for anything. You need to know where you are before you can take the next step. But if you're starting off wanting to get rid of conflict, which he's advising, then that motivation is going to contaminate the inquiry.
Is it possible to observe, clearly perceive, have an insight into the causation of conflict?
I'm waiting, I'm excited.
If you can find out the causation, then this thing disappears altogether, the effect which is conflict. So we are asking, is the cause thought?
Oh boy. Mr. Anti-Thought, back again. The cause of conflict is not thought. The cause of conflict is the one assumption, which is that human beings are lacking and flawed. That causes us to be distracted from our innate happiness and goodwill, and we chase substitutes for that happiness, which leads to us hurting ourselves and others, and it divides us against ourselves when we believe that we're lacking and flawed. But he says it's just thought. Bad old thought. That's so superficial. That's not the cause. What caused the thought? Just go a step back there and go, well, I wanted something and I didn't get it, now I'm in conflict. Why did you want something in the first place? Because you thought you were lacking. See?
The speaker putting out these things, don't agree or disagree, we're going to examine.
He always advises the audience to listen and to not take him seriously and things like that. But I've seen him, when somebody starts talking in the audience, he'll shut them up. Say, sirs, please be quiet, And I've never seen, with all these gurus, especially the anti-thought ones, they what do you mean about the observer and the observed and the analyzer and the analysed and total perception of total consciousness and you say you've gotten beyond thought and to a great place. Can you sort of tell us about that? Nobody ever asks him those questions. They'll just ask nitpicky questions about how to do what he's advising. And then he claims not to be a guru. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous.
Is the cause this sense of duality we have, division between what I am, what I should be?
Well, that last one, yes, division between what I am and what I should be, that's the immediate cause, the present cause, but what caused that? And that was distraction from the innate happiness and goodwill that happened since babyhood due to society's illusion.
The should be is a projection of thought. That if one does not like the way one is living or is painful, therefore one projects a concept of a better way of living, an ideal.
Well, if life's going bad, you should look to improve it. What's wrong with that? But it depends on why it's going bad. Is it going bad because you're in a deluded world? Or is it going bad because of animals chasing you and trying to kill you? Or is it going bad because you're not in touch with the innate happiness and goodwill of being?
And conforming oneself to that ideal. And therefore, conflict, and the actual and the ideal. Then, is that one of the causes of conflict?
It's not the essential and most important cause.
Which means we never face actually what is.
That's true. A lot of people are on the path to finding the ultimate cause of our problems, but they always get distracted along the way because there's so much to be distracted by, all these millions of techniques and new age ideas.
Always moving away or escaping from actually observing the actuality, the pettiness of our life.
So he's judging the pettiness of our life. He's escaping from thoughts and immediate pains rather than analysing what caused them, ultimately caused them. Anyway, he is supposed to be the world teacher, but maybe I'm the world teacher. That's my book. Happiness is the Starting Place, available on Amazon, and thanks for watching.